in this video, we're going over the quadratic formula, and this is part one of a two-part video. LEQ, how do you use the quadratic formula to solve equations? All right, LEQ. LEQ stands for Lesson Essential Question. So by the time we get done with this video, you'll be able to answer, how do you use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations? All right, here's your key concept, which is the quadratic formula. It says to solve a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Now, this will give you two answers because you have negative b plus this divided by 2a and negative b minus this divided by 2a. So this will give you two answers. And yes, you can write them as one, like we've been doing, say 6 plus or minus the square root of 11 or something like that. So you can write them as one answer by using the plus minus here. You don't have to write them as two. All right, so let's dive into using this thing. What are the solutions? Use the quadratic formula. All right, so the first thing we need to do to this first one, we have 2x squared minus x equals 4, is we need to bring the 4 over. That was a 4. We need to bring the 4 over, so we have 2x squared minus x minus 4 equals 0. So now we're in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, let's identify a, b, and c. Well, a equals 2, b equals negative 1, and c equals negative 4. All I did was pull the coefficients straight down. We have a, which is 2, b, which is, it's just a negative, but remember there's an understood 1 there, so negative 1, and then c is negative 4. So now we just simply plug into the quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. All right, so we know our numbers, let's plug them all in. X equals, let's see, negative 1, which is, so I'm going to write it like this for now, plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared minus 4 times a times c. All of this stays under the square root. And then all of that's divided by 2 times a, which is also 2. All right, so now let's simplify some of this down. This here goes to 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared. 16 times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 32. And since it's negative and negative, it's a positive 32. All divided by 4. Now 1 squared is simply 1, so this is 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared is 1 plus 32 is 33, all divided by 4. All right, so x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 33 divided by 4. All right, this is your answer, or should I say these are your two answers, because you have 1 plus the square root of 33 divided by 4, or 1 minus the square root of 33 divided by 4. All right, now just leave them like this. You don't have to convert them to a decimal. You can just simply leave them like this. All right, let's do another one real quick. Oops, I drew a line the whole time. All right, so this one's already in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, so let's identify our variables. A is 1, b is 6, and c is 9. So let's plug it in. X equals, remember, here's our quadratic formula. So we're going to have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. Oops. All right, so x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36, that's 6 squared, minus 4 times 1 is 4, times 9 is 36, all divided by 2. So x equals, well, this is negative 6 plus or minus, well, what's this equal? Well, this cancels out, that equals 0. Square root of 0 is 0. So this is just negative 6 over 2, which equals negative 3. So our answer here is x equals negative 3. Now, when this happens, all right, when you get, like we did here, we got one answer, x equals negative 3. What that means is that what we started with is a perfect square trinomial, all right? Because we only ended up with one answer, so we have what's called a perfect square trinomial like we've been going over. Because if you were to factor x squared plus 6x plus 9 as a perfect square trinomial, you'd get x plus 3 quantity squared, and when you solve that out, you're going to get the negative 3, all right? So that's how you use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to have you knock these two out real quick. So put these in your notes. These are your got it's. Put these in your notes. What are the solutions used to quadratic formula? So pause the video and knock these out. All right. I'll go ahead and write in the quadratic formula here. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So I've got that written. All right, so let's do this one. Well, first we need to add the 4 over. So we have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. Now let's solve her. A equals 1, B equals 4, C equals 4. So we have x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times A times C, all divided by 2A. So we have x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 16 divided by 2. Well, that cancels. So we have x equals negative 4 over 2, which is simply negative 2. So for this first one, you should have got x equals negative 2. Now the second one here, we have a equals 1, b equals 4, and c equals negative 3. Don't forget to bring the negative down when you bring the 3 down. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. So we have x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12, all divided by 2. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of, what is that, 28, all divided by 2. Now for this one, the square root of 28 will break down. Okay, the square root of 28 will break down because this is 4 times 7. All right, so this will break down into x equals negative 4 plus or minus 4. I'm sorry. I'm going to do it this way. The square root of 4 times 7 over 2. Now we know the square root of 4 is 2, so we can pull a 2 out from underneath the square root. Okay, so 2. Okay, again, because the square root of 4 is 2, so we can pull the 2 out. So 2 times the square root of 7 divided by 2. Now if you notice, negative 4 is divisible by 2, and 2 is divisible by 2. So we can go ahead and do the division. When we divide it by here, this cancels with this, making this a negative 2, and then the 2 cancels with this, making it a 1. So our final answer here is going to be negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 7. All right, negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 7. All right, make sure you got that. Because again, the negative 4 will cancel with the 2 to give negative 2, and the 2 will cancel with the 2 to give you a 1, and of course you don't have to write the understood 1. Okay? All right. Applying the quadratic formula. So now, how are we going to take this quadratic formula and actually use it to solve problems in the real world? You know, like, for example, your school's jazz band is selling CDs as a fundraiser. The total profit P depends on the amount X that your band charges for each CD. the equation P equals negative x squared plus 48x minus 300 models the profit of the fundraiser. What is the least amount in dollars that you can charge for a CD to make a $200 profit? All right, well, here's what we got to do. We know this equation represents our profit, and we know we want to make at least $200 profit. So we want this equation to equal 200. So 200 equals negative x squared plus 48, that's a weird 8, x minus 300. Now, we're going to solve this. We're going to run this through the quadratic formula, and we're going to get our answer. All right, and remember, we're going to get two answers. So we're going to have to pick the smallest one because it wants what is the least amount. So to start to solve this, we need it equal to 0. So minus the 200 minus 200. So negative x squared plus 48x minus 500 equals 0. Now we're going to plug this big thing into the quadratic formula. Remember, it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. All right, so we know that a equals negative 1, we know b is 48, and we know c equals negative 500. So we're going to have x equals negative 48 plus or minus the square root of 48 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. All right, so there, we've got it set up now. Now, I don't expect you to do this in your head. Go ahead and plug it into your calculator. And you plug this into your calculator, you should get x equals negative 48 plus or minus the square root of 304 divided by negative 2. All right, what's under this square root, that's called the discriminant. We'll get to that next video. What's under the square root should simplify down to 304. All right, so now plug this into your calculator because since we're trying to find the price of a CD, we're actually going to need to plug this into the calculator and get a decimal for these. All right, so when you plug it into the calculator, your two answers should be 15.28, because remember it's money, so around the two decimal places, and you should also get 32.72. All right, so when you plug in negative 48 plus all this, you're going to get one of these answers. When you plug in negative 48 minus all this, you're going to get the other answer. Now, it says what is the least amount you can charge and still make at least $200 profit? Well, the least you can charge is going to be the smaller of these two numbers. So since the 15.28 is the smaller of the two numbers, that's the least amount that you can charge and for the CDs and still make a $200 profit. Okay, that's the least you can charge and still make a $200 profit. All right, so this has been, well, before I end the video, let me just go back up here. So when you have a word problem like this, and they give you an equation like they did here, the p equals negative x squared plus 48x minus 300, and they say this represents, I'm going to use this example again, this equation represents the total amount of profit if you sell the CDs for X amount of dollars. And then we want to make $200 profit, so what do we got to sell the CDs for? So you take the profit that you're looking for and set it equal to your equation like we did here. All right. Then we subtracted the profit across to make it so that way this whole function equals 0. All right. So after we subtracted across, the negative 300 went to negative 500, and the rest of it stayed the same. Then you simply identify A, B, and C. Once you do that, plug it into the quadratic formula, simplify it down. In this case, we're looking for money. So we simplified it down, and we got that you could either charge $15 or $32, and then it wanted the least amount of money that we had to charge to make $200. So the least amount of money is the smaller of the two answers, giving you the 15.28. All right, so this has been your video on the quadratic formula. Feel free to watch it as many times as you need to. Make sure when you come to class tomorrow, you're ready to work some problems. See you tomorrow.